Welcome back to Alpine Garage Sports, folks. My name is Chris. I'm your host for this show. Today we are talking about the proposed transfer portal changes that they're going to be talking about in October coming up, whether or not they're going to reduce the time frame of when NCAA players can actually enter the portal from 60 days down to 30 days. So they're wanting to cut it in half. So we're going to be talking about that. And we're also going to be talking about the who, what, when, where, why of that whole thing. Who does it affect? Who does it benefit? And then also I'm going to throw in there too, I've been reading some stuff even just recently that's talking about how this change is maybe even aimed at Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. And I'm going to give you my opinion on that as well because it's out there. So why not talk about it? So we're going to talk about all those things. But first I want to thank Polo, one of my subscribers, for asking the question yesterday about what my thoughts on that are, because I didn't know if I was going to do a video on it because this whole transfer portal thing is kind of getting crazy, and it's really not even going to be talked about until October, although the media is going to talk about it all the way until October, including me. So why not put it out there? And so thank you, Polo, for asking that question. We're going to go down that rabbit hole and talk about that. So, but first, if you are not already subscribed to this channel, please do so. We have great subscribers. We have great commenters down in the comments. We'd love to hear from you as well down in the comments. Tell me what you think about all the things that we're going to talk about today. So first of all, the article that I'm referring to is the 247 Sports article, and they talk about this college football transfer portal proposition essentially that's coming from, I guess, initially from the SEC commissioner. Was talking on the Joe Klatt show about how he believes that the window is too big. 60 days is too long, and then it needs to be narrowed down to 30 days. And we're going to talk about who it benefits first. Okay, so let's talk about the fact that right now the portal windows, or at least last year, a new rule came into place last year before the season started, that the portal windows were going to actually be a window instead of just an open portal. And a lot of that had to do with player tampering and players leaving at the last minute to go to other schools, and they thought that there was tampering, specifically the Jordan Addison case out of Pitt going to USC. Pat Narduzzi talking about how he was tampered with, and that whole big drama that happened last summer. And that is still playing out for a lot of coaches. A lot of coaches believe that tampering happens later on in that portal, and so that may be the reason why this is happening. But so who does it, if we were going to go from 60 days to 30 days, first of all, who does it benefit? Who does it hurt? In my opinion, who does it benefit? It benefits the coaches in the schools. Why does it benefit the coaches in the schools? Because it's already a hard job having to basically rebuild a program every year, which wasn't the case 10 or 15 years ago. At that point, you were recruiting to fill in people who are leaving to go to the NFL, maybe graduating early, maybe getting hurt, not playing anymore, and that's what you were recruiting to build. Now you are literally recruiting to replace players that are going into the transfer portal. So it's already a much harder job than it was in the past. And some teams like Colorado benefit from this year. And some teams like, I don't know, pick a team out there that lost a lot of players last year, just basically got gutted. And we can talk about Pitt last year with the Jordan Addison thing, losing some of their best players and then not really replacing them with better players. Having the window shortened allows the coaches that much more time to mitigate the loss that they had, and then to also start building the team after the portal window closes, then who they have left on the team, and they know who they can replace them with. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that the coaches benefit from this more than the players do. So who does it hurt? It hurts the players. So if the players go from having an open window to having windows, and then having that window shortened, that gives them less opportunity to put themselves out there for another team. Now, does it really hurt the players? You know, I'm not a player, so I can't answer that question, but I will say this, that if you, at the end of the season, let's say, if you were planning on leaving that team because the culture isn't right or because you're not getting the playing time or for some other reason, you probably know that going into the end of the season. And when the portal opens, that's when most of the traffic happens. So the portal opens within the first probably 3, 4, 5 days. You start seeing people pile on and pile on and pile on. So having it be 45 days at the end of the season, is that too long? And that's what this whole thing is about, is are the players going to be hurt by this, by not having that extended window? So that is the who. The coaches technically could benefit from this because once they're in the portal, they're in the portal. The players could be hurt by this. Okay, so that's kind of where we started. Now let's talk about the why. So the why on this is the fact that commissioners, coaches, and schools could say that the vast majority of the players that are entering the portal enter within the first couple of weeks. Okay, so the first 10 to 14 days. After that, you have the potential of teams to start tampering with other teams. So basically, I'm a great player on Team A, and the portal comes open, and as a player on Team A, the best player on Team A, I'm not going to jump straight into the portal. I'm going to stay at the school for a little bit and wait for people to come to me. And I'm going to say, you know what, I might be good where I'm at. And then the stakes start to get higher and higher and higher. And then after a while, the bags may be getting so big that they say, you know what, at the last minute, I'm going to enter the transfer portal. Now that team, on the other hand, thinks that they're going to keep their number one player until the very end. Then the player, just like that, flips on the 43rd day or 40th day or whatever it is, after very little communication with the team. And then all of a sudden, teams start to think, oh, they must have been tampered with. So the bags got bigger. And so therefore, whoever he's going to go to, especially if he enters the portal and then literally goes to a school like immediately afterwards, you can probably assume at that point something happened, right? At least if you were a coach or an AD or something like that, that may be what you were thinking. So that is the why. They're talking about narrowing that window down to make it, I guess, more pure, that players that knew that they wanted to leave and knew they wanted another opportunity, or maybe they needed a culture change, or maybe they just needed a change of atmosphere, could do that, and they know they're going to do that, and it gives them basically a 2-week window with 15 days. They should be able to do that in a shorter amount of time, and that's what the schools are saying. So that is the why. So now you get to the question of how. How would they cut it from 60 down to 30? So we're only 2 weeks in the spring, so that's 15 days in the spring. I don't know that you can cut that down a whole lot more. But what you could cut down is you could cut down the winter window. So the winter window of 45 days starting this last year on December 5th and ending on December 18th, that could potentially shorten to another 15-day window. So 2 15-day windows. Now, what would you cut that 15 days and have it be like December 5th through December 20th? Would you make it January 3rd to January 18th? I would say this. I would say that you could either do 2 windows and do a 7-day window at the end of season on December 5th. You could also do another 7-day window from January the 11th to January the 18th, or January the 10th to January the 18th. And that way you have 2 chances to get in. You have a chance to get in early. You have basically a 30-day window, and then you have a chance at the end. Now that also helps schools that are in bowls and playoffs, because those bowls and those playoffs happen at the end of December all the way through about the 8th of January. So if you shorten the window the other direction and make it 15 days in December, then those players that are playing in bowls and championship series and stuff like that are not going to have the opportunity to get into the portal. So that portal cannot be right there in December and then be closed. It's got to swing over to the end of that portal, which is early to mid-January. I think that's where the 15 days should be if they're going to change that rule. And that way, players that are playing in bowls and championships can do so and still enter the portal after that. Now, why couldn't it be later than that? Why couldn't it be at the end of January? Well, the problem there is that a lot of players that are going to transfer are going to immediately enroll, and they're going to start in spring ball. So you can't make it a whole lot later than January 18th, or that just goes out the window completely. So that's the how. That's how I think they could do it. They can make it 15 days, January 3rd to January 18th, and then make it at the end of April as well. That way you can pool the best of both time periods and make that shortened window if the NCAA decides that they want to do that because of player tampering. Now, let's finish this video real quick with that this might be specifically targeted at Coach Prime, or targeted at schools that had a really big transfer year as far as a school is concerned. USC last year, for instance. I would say this. I don't know that this rule specifically was targeted at any school. If it was targeted at any school, it might be targeted at schools that may have been tampering, may have been caught tampering, or may have thought to have tampered. But it's definitely not for, like, we were able to turn our entire roster over practically this year because we had a brand new coach and brand new coaching staff. That won't happen in the future. So this shortened transfer window doesn't really have anything to do with Colorado as far as I'm concerned, because players still have the opportunity to enter, and then they can stay in as long as they want at that point. So it doesn't really affect that. If we were going to go and we were going to tamper with teams and have that longer window to do that, then maybe then it would affect us. But we don't do that. Obviously, we don't do that. I think Coach Prime and the coaching staff here, I think if the portal were 7 days in the year, they probably would have been able to do the same thing as they would if it was 60 days. So I don't know that had a lot to do with it at this point. Now, my personal opinion on this, and keep in mind this is just my opinion, is narrowing this window. I don't know that really does anything. Who's it going to benefit the most? Okay? And if you're talking about that shortening the window is going to benefit the coaching staffs in the schools because they're going to be able to get on with their lives a little bit faster. It doesn't necessarily hurt the athletes, in my opinion, as much, because you still have 30 days. You have a month out of an entire year to make a decision as to what you're going to do. And I think if you can't make a decision within that month, then maybe you should stay where you're at. And that's what's called planning. You have to plan. You have to plan. Now, the problem with coaching, when you go back to the other side with the coaching, is they can't plan anything until things settle, until they know who's leaving at that point, okay? They can bring players in and they can and then they can change their game plan based on that. But if they are going to potentially lose their top 5 players, to do that in a smaller window so that they can react to it in the portal later, I think would be more important. So that's the reason why I would say that if it were coaching that benefits, if it were the coaches in the schools that benefit from this, then I would say shorten the window. Make it a little bit shorter. Make it easier for the teams to be able to negotiate that and plan their years. Still give great opportunity to the players. And I mean, really, at the end of the day, does this really change anything? I don't know that it changes anything. If it reduces the tampering at all, then maybe it's a benefit. We're only into the transfer portal by, I think, 5 or 6 years? And the 1 year rule, kind of set out a year for transferring, is only maybe 3 years old, two or 3 years old. And the original windows that were created was last year. And then now they're talking about narrowing those windows. And then next year there'll be another change, and the next year there'll be another change, and the next year there'll be another change. And if they narrow this window at this point, and they find out that it is a detriment to the players, like a significant detriment to the players, then they'll change the portal rules again, and they'll open it back up again. And who knows, maybe they'll open it back up. Maybe they'll open up to more than 60 days. So anyway, that's my opinion on this. Tell me what you think down in the comments. Do you think that this is something that is going to happen or not going to happen? Do you think that it benefits the players or the coaches? And any other opinions you might have on this. And we'll roll that up and do another video on that based off of your comments. And I'll give the popular opinion, let's say, based on the subscribers to this channel. Thank you very much for hanging out with us. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. Hit that notification button too, because we're going to be putting out a lot more videos here coming up closer to the beginning of July, and then obviously all the way through fall season. And we will see you in the next video. And if you haven't already heard, we coming.